Hello viewers, thank you very much for watching this video. Once again, hello viewers, thank you very much for watching this video cast. My name is Dr. Charlie and welcome to EIZ Business Management Lectures. This is the platform where we provide tips with regards to business management courses at undergraduate, master, and PhD degree level. This specific video cast goes to all those who are doing their master degrees and are now at the stage of doing their dissertation. I'm just going to do an overview look at what a master dissertation entails. And before I proceed, I want to encourage you to please click the subscriber button if you're watching on our YouTube channel so that you don't miss any of the videos that I will be uploading. You can also follow us via our Facebook page, and if you just say Entrepreneurship Institute, if you Google, you will find it. Let me quickly share with you the PowerPoint, and then we can have a look at what I want to share with you. Okay. So there we are. Let me go to the first slide. There we are, and let me maximize it. There we are. So once again, my name is Dr. Charlie. I'm going to take you through this master dissertation overview. Obviously, viewers will be at different stages in their master degree. Some are just starting, some are halfway through, and some are advanced. But what I'll be sharing is kind of common. We are just looking at the structure there. Now, who is Dr. Charlie? I hold a PhD in management at Manchester Metropolitan University. I'm an associate fellow of the UK Higher Education Academy and an associate fellow of the Decent Work and Productivity Center here at Manchester Metropolitan University, and I'm the CEO and lead consultant for EIZ. Now, a look at the objectives for this particular video cast. Firstly, to reaffirm the purpose of the master dissertation. This is important because without understanding the purpose of anything, abuse becomes inevitable. And second objective is to explore what the master dissertation in general looks like. And we have things like the introduction, literature review, and obviously with a conclusion. And given time, we can also look at the challenges that most students tend to come across. Now, the purpose for a master dissertation. It is important that you understand why, as a master degree student, you are required to undertake this dissertation as part of your fulfillment towards the achievement of a master degree. There are so many responses that we could actually come up with, but I've just decided to highlight these three, which in my view are quite significant. The first one, of course, is applying knowledge learned, okay? Applying knowledge learned. Depending on your university, in general, masters take about a year, some 1.5 years, or maybe 2 years. All we are saying is you have been undergoing a process of learning. So at the end of it, we want you to demonstrate that indeed you have acquired knowledge. And how do you do that? By applying that knowledge through conducting independent research to address, it could be a practical issue or even an abstract theoretical issue. Secondly, is at a master degree level, you are required to demonstrate that your research sheds some new light or cast insight. It differs from an undergraduate research where basically we want you to demonstrate that you are able to follow research protocol or procedure. And thirdly, you are looking at critical thought and writing. Again, at a master degree level, we expect to see that deep thinking, that critical analyzing of issues, as well as your writing style. You can also look at it even at the degree of mistakes that we tend to expect in a master's thesis. It has to differ from a dissertation by a bachelor degree student. So having highlighted these three, the so what question, that's why you see this question mark I have put in this blue circle to say the so what. Why are we talking about this purpose? For what purpose? This leads us to say you need to review the guidelines for your university. Why am I saying this? Each university has different guidelines regarding the undertaking of a master dissertation. So review the guidelines for your university. Because if you don't follow the guidelines for your university, then you will not get the high marks that you are supposed to get. Secondly, reflect on what you learned. Don't reinvent the wheel. You are not being asked to do the extraordinary. The issue here is throughout a year and a half, you acquired pieces or diverse knowledge, so to say. All the examiner wants you now is to put that knowledge into application. So reflect on what you learned. So there are usually 5 chapters in a master thesis. Chapter 1, the introduction. Chapter 2, literature review. Chapter 3, methodology. And chapter 4, results. And chapter 5, conclusion. They may differ depending on the university structure. And that's why I have said review the specific guidelines of your university. Now, looking at the introductory chapter, which is chapter 1, what is the purpose of this chapter? It is called introductory because it introduces the thesis of the dissertation to the reader. So it sets the tone. So generally, you'll be touching on almost bits and pieces of the entire thesis, and you put it in the first chapter so that the reader gets a feel of what it is like. And therefore, it usually starts with this background. In some theses, I've seen others actually writing introduction. So don't be confused. It's one and the same thing. So what do you mean by background? In this, you need to capture what are the issues about. So I'm just going to quickly run through. In my view, it is best if you come up with an initial statement, sentence that clearly states what your thesis is about. So what is this dissertation about? For example, this master thesis looks into the influence of profit share on employee productivity. So automatically I would understand that that's what this thesis is about. Then the second sentence now, it differs on how you want to start it, but this is where now you come up with an opening statement that unveils the can, we normally say opening the can of worms, that unveils what the issues really are. For example, the past decade shows that employee productivity continues to be problematic amidst a plethora of hypotheses that it has to do with limited profit share. So it opens that can of worms. So this is what has been happening the past decade. Then delve deep to begin to share these issues. What is the key issue? Because given a number of issues, usually there will be 1, 2, or 3 which are the major. Why are things the way they are? Highlight to the reader to say, why is the situation the way it is? And what are the effects of all these issues and the major issue? You go on. Who is affected and to what extent, okay? Because you are problematizing these issues. So what has been done and by who to address these issues? We want to know. What was the impact given the above? In other words, when these interventions were done, What was the impact? Was it enough? And what is currently being done and by who to address this issue? As you continue in your background, tell us, what is the impact given the above? What else remains unresolved or problematic? And what is the impact if we don't do anything about it? Then go on to highlight how can the unresolved issues potentially be addressed. So when, where, and what is the potential for success? And who will benefit from addressing the unresolved issues? And how can these be unresolved? And why, in any case, is addressing the unresolved issues so important? So if you manage to address all these what, where, why, who, when, which, how questions briefly, and of course you'll be citing some references, but you won't be really going deep into reviewing literature, because this is not a literature review, but you are providing this extant knowledge reference to give evidence so that your background is credible. So once you do this, you have set the tone, you have really problematized it. Now, I have seen some master dissertation actually, before coming to the research aim, coming up with a paragraph which is not more than 10 sentences, which they call statement of the problem. But I've also seen a number of master dissertations, they don't have that kind of a thing. It is available in the bachelor degree. So again, I refer you to the guidelines from your university. Otherwise, a statement of the problem is just a summary, really, of the background. Now, coming to the research aim, what is a research aim? A research aim, as I have written here, and as you may already be aware, is the overarching purpose. Okay, why are you doing the research? What do you seek to do at the end of the day? So a purpose, a research aim, has to do with gaining understanding or gaining knowledge out of doing that research. For example, to establish the effects of profit share scheme on employee productivity. And then from the aim, you then develop objectives, and objectives are usually identified as SMART. SMART in the sense that S is specific, M is measurable, A is achievable. Excuse me, let me just take a cough and I'll have some water. So S is specific, M is measurable, A is achievable, realistic, and with a time schedule. Okay, SMART. So you come up with these objectives, which once you set them, at the end of doing your research, you are actually able to evaluate to say the research was successfully achieved because you managed to satisfy each and every one of your objectives. So, for example, I'm talking of objectives here, and objectives usually come after research questions, but some theses actually start with objectives, then they come up with questions. And again, in a number of master theses, they don't tend to put all these two together. In other words, a thesis either has research questions and no objectives, or it has objectives and no research questions, or it has both. Again, I refer you to the guidelines for your university. Now, in terms of the research questions here, you'll be looking at what is the influence of profit share on employee productivity. Okay, so these are research objectives written in question format. And then coming to objectives, these are specific statements describing variables being investigated. And I alluded earlier on that these are specific. An example here is to explore the influence of profit share scheme on employee productivity. A second objective could be to ascertain. So as you can see, we have these active verbs: to explore, to ascertain, to determine, okay, to examine, to identify. So this is how you come up with research objectives. And going on in our introductory chapter, we can also share with us the limitations. These are the challenges which you faced when you conducted your research. If it has not been conducted, which you expect to confront as you conduct your research. And then we also need you to comment. It's not just good enough to tell us the challenges without commenting the projected impact. That is, if you are proposing, or if it was already done, tell us what was the impact, or what is the impact of these limitations. To what extent do these limitations work against the credibility or the validity of your master thesis? Then you also tell us briefly about your methodology. This is just a brief statement. Remember, you have a whole chapter devoted to methodology. So you are simply telling us that this study was premised on a quantitative approach, that kind of a thing, okay, where through stratified sampling proportionate to size, I selected 35 participants, that kind of a thing. And then you tell us the structure. By the structure of the study, you are simply letting us know how your thesis is organized. For example, this thesis is organized in 5 chapters or in 7 chapters, namely introduction, and then you tell us what they are. And you close your chapter with a summary where you are simply summarizing to say, in this chapter, I set the tone by indicating how problematic it is to have consistent employee productivity, and with a number of players pointing to challenges in profit share scheme. The next chapter will look at the literature review, that kind of a thing. Then we now come to chapter 2, which is the literature review. Here you now do what we call joining the discourse. To join the discourse implies that you need to identify the ongoing debate. Which scholars are talking about employee productivity, and what are they attributing employee productivity to? So there you have to do your review using major subheadings, okay? For example, in this case, a subheading under profit share scheme, another subheading under employee productivity, and then tell us who says what, why, how, where, when. Are there any conflicting views? Is there unanimity? And then you also introduce your own voice. What do you think? For example, Barbon actually argues that profit share has nothing to do with employee productivity. And this is contrary to the views of many scholars, such as Clinton, or such as Charlie, or such as Razi, that kind of a thing. But I think, in my view, that this is quite contentious. Then you put in your own voice there, okay? And then once you do this, then tell us what remains unresolved. Yes, scholars have done a number of studies. So what remains unresolved? And critically, what are the cause-effect relationships? If I may pinpoint or highlight to you, research, put in other words, is simply investigating cause-effect relationships. You want to understand why B behaves the way it is. By B, it's a phenomenon. Why does A behave the way it does? Is it because it is influenced by a phenomenon called B? And does C also has a role to play in the way A does? So if you are able to identify these variables, then the better. That's what research is all about. And then you also close it with a summary. Then we go to methodology. And again, you start with introduction. Methodology is all about telling us all the steps. We call it methodological. It's scientific. There's a logic behind it. You don't just do it, take a particular step for the sake of, but there's a logic and there's a science behind it. So that's methodology. Now, again, I've put a star here. I've seen a few master theses that actually discuss their research philosophy. By research philosophy, we are looking at your perspective with regards to what you call knowledge and how you access knowledge and what you call the nature of reality. I don't want to get into detail with this. All I can do is to direct you to, if you just Google and say research onion, and then you find all these different perspectives of philosophy. This obviously is included in a PhD. You cannot do a PhD without tackling research philosophy. But at master degree level, quite a number of master theses don't really discuss research philosophy. So I refer you again to guidelines, specific guidelines for your university. Let me have a glass of water. I'm catching a cough. So there we are. So what is mostly common is the research approach, there. This is where you take us through the approach that you decided to take. In general, methodology, when you do a research, either you can take a quantitative approach, for example, a survey, or a qualitative approach, for example, a case study. Or you can do a mixed, that is both quantitative and a qualitative. The whole idea is not just for you to tell us this approach, but the justification. Why did you choose a quantitative and not a qualitative, or vice versa? And why did you opt for a mixed method? Then you also tell us your data collection. Obviously, if it was a quantitative approach, then you would have used a probabilistic sampling technique. Did you use symbol random? Did you use stratified sampling? Did you use stratified sampling proportionate to size, and why? If it was qualitative, that's non-probabilistic, purposive sampling, judgmental sampling, snowball sampling, that kind of thing. So again, justify why did you prefer one sampling technique, okay, against or over the other. Then you go on to tell us the research instruments. These are the tangibles, the gadgets that you, or the technologies that you used to collect data. For example, your cell phone, maybe to record, or you actually had a special dictaphone voice recorder, okay? So all the tools that you used in undertaking your research, it's not just a matter of listing, but the whole idea is to justify their utility. Why did you use such research instruments? Then you go on to tell us the data collection procedures. This is the step-by-step from the day that you chose the topic and the day that you went into the field, how you were collecting, if it was a questionnaire or if it was the interviews. So you need to tell us, okay, the assumptions which you made and the challenges that you projected for, so, and how you actually managed. It's one thing to plan to go to collect data, but it's another thing to actually collect it and then manage the arising challenges. So that's what you do, your data collection, and how you are actually safeguarding your data against loss, where you call it data management, data cleaning, and how you are capturing it. All this comes under data collection. And then you go on to 3.5, which is your data analysis, okay? Your data analysis. Obviously, if it was a quantitative, you would have used statistical tools, okay, to come up with frequency, graphs, regressions, chi-square. And if it was a qualitative, obviously, you had to analyze words, text analysis, or analyze the entire paragraph, passage analysis. In the end, then you then come up with themes, okay? For example, like the theme of demotivation. It is a theme. Under what circumstances does employees discharge demotivation, okay, or display being demotivated as a theme? Then you then explain. And then we come again to this issue 3.6 of ethics. Again, formats differ. I've seen a number of master dissertations that do not really devote so much space to detailing how they address the issues of ethics, whereas others actually do address. I would encourage that as a master degree student, and you want to believe after that you want to go for a PhD, you need to address issues of ethics. That is, how did you address issues of confidentiality and consent? Remember, participants have the right to give consent to participate. They have the right to answer or to respond and not to respond to your questions. And they have the right to withdraw at any particular time. So how do you address, or how did you address that? And then at the end of it, and then you provide a summary. You simply summarize there. And by the way, if you have just joined us, this is EIZ Business Management Lectures, and my name is Dr. Charlie, and we provide online tutorial for those undergraduate, master, and PhD students, specifically, or in most cases, those who are doing business management degree courses. And this video is specifically for the master dissertation overview. Now we are in chapter 4, where you are now discussing your results. Again, you start with an introduction where you are telling us what this chapter is all about. And then you follow this by giving us the elementary statistics. And I've entitled it here to say participants profile. This is where you are simply telling us who participated, not their names, but the statistic. For example, 60% were male and 40% were female, and 33% had a master degree, whereas 10% had a PhD, and the remainder had a bachelor degree. You are telling us about more about your participants so that we get to know them. Or maybe 30% of the participants worked for, in my case, given this example, for medium enterprises, then 40% small businesses, and the majority micro enterprise, something like that. Then once you have done that, again, when you discuss your results, remember you need to tie back to your research question, back to your research objectives. When you undertook this research, or if it has not yet been done, as you intend to do this master research, you are being guided by research question and research objectives. Therefore, as you discuss the results, that is, if it was done, you need to tie the discussion to the research objectives. In this case, a discussion under, for example, the influence of profit share on employee productivity. So what were the results? What are the findings? So don't just list to say, this is what I found, or just put a graph there. Tell us the implication. So discuss it. And as you discuss, again, you will be reflecting and tying to those questions that we introduced. Remember, we introduced them in the background here. Those what, why. So you come back here again. So what, as I've indicated there by these golden questions: what, who, where, when, how. So as you will be discussing, you'll be reflecting on these questions and also indicating which ones were standing out as the independent variables which are influencing the dependent variables. And you conclude with a summary. And then we come to chapter 5, which is the conclusion. Again, you start with the introduction, where you tell us that this chapter puts the matter to rest. This is where you are concluding and drawing your conclusions. So you draw implications from the results. In this chapter, please don't make the mistake that a number of students do make. Don't introduce new things here. This chapter is not a chapter where you are now introducing something new that you have not even discussed about in chapter 1, in chapter 2, in chapter 3, even in your results. We can't start to see new things in here. You are simply drawing implications based on the discussion of your results. You are answering the so what questions. And remember, being a master thesis, we want to see the insights, or we want to see the new lights, like your thesis. What is it really bring? What new things is it really sharing? What else didn't we know? It must tell the reader to say, I did know about this. I did not been because of this master dissertation. And then finally, you have here, discuss the impact. What is the contribution? What is the impact of your thesis, of your findings, of your insights to academic body of knowledge, to industry, those who are already SMEs and facing these challenges of employee productivity? What is the impact? And also to policy. Does your thesis have any relevance to policy? We are not saying force it to have relevance, but it will be good before doing research to always forward think or forward plan or do that forward scenario planning to say, before I do my master dissertation, is my thesis going to have an impact on policy? So a thesis that will have impact on policy will receive higher marks because it's quite relevant. We don't just want to do master thesis or dissertations or research for the sake of, but we want something that can build our society. Remember, the role of an academic is not just to teach, but to research, and not just to research, but to impact and improve our lives in society. And that's why I've put this image of a binoculars. You can see this binoculars, and obviously the researcher will be standing there. So you are here and you are having a global view of this society, and you are saying, what are the issues that are bedeviling my society? If it is Manchester, that is bedeviling Manchester. If it is in Liverpool, or if it is in Angola, or wherever you are, in Namibia or in Zimbabwe or in America. So you are taking this global view and you are just viewing your society and say, what are the issues? And as a master student, then you take on board those issues and then you resolve them through research. So after you've done that, then you highlight or tell us the limitations. What are the limitations that you confronted? And then as you come to the conclusion, then you set an agenda for future research. There is no research, even at PhD level, that can exhaust all the problems that they are to be. You can never come up with all the solutions that they are or that has to be. So there is always a lot of room, significant room actually. Your thesis contribute just this little, be it master's or at PhD. So you need to comment and say, my thesis actually creates an agenda for research in this area. More studies are required in that area. A thesis that develops significant agenda tends to get higher marks from there. So we have come to the conclusion. I hope you have really enjoyed. So let us go back to the full screen there so that I can conclude with you. And like I said, this program is EIZ Business Management Lectures. EIZ Business Management Lectures. And my name is Dr. Charlie. It was my pleasure to have you, and thank you for watching and listening. I hope you've benefited one or two. And like I have said, this lecture that I've given is by no means cast in a stone. You need to refer to the specific format for your university with regards to doing a master degree dissertation or thesis. And you need to reflect on what you have learned, because it is all about applying what you have learned to address a practical issue, okay? And before I say bye-bye, don't forget to click the subscribe button so that you don't miss any of the videos that I will be uploading. Also, I've got some good news to share with you. I have arranged a number of webinars, okay? These are practical best webinars for undergraduates, master, and PhD students. So if you are doing your undergraduate project, research project, or your master degree dissertation, or your PhD degree thesis, then go to Eventbrite. Eventbrite, we all know Eventbrite. So if you go to Eventbrite there and just Google undergraduate webinars or master dissertation webinars or PhD thesis webinars, you then come across them. This is whereby you can book in your participation and then I can actually give you customized advice and support on how you can go about with your dissertation or with your thesis. So that's what I have done every month. If you check, they're already there on Eventbrite. And also in September, there's going to be a PhD webinar conference. It's a webinar conference that is going to start on the 2nd of September, 3rd of September, 4th of September, and 5th of September. So 4 days. Each day, there is an opportunity for 7 PhD students to come and present their research proposal. So if you have just started your PhD, all you need to do is to submit your research proposal to me, and then your PowerPoint slide, and then during the conference, you present for 20 minutes, and then you get constructive feedback from other participants as well as from me. So details about this, you get them on Eventbrite. And if you want to get in touch with me, here are our details. Here's the screen. So you can see there below at the bottom, you can actually see eiz@gmail.com. There it is, eiz@gmail.com. So that's my email address, eiz.sfs, actually, eiz.sfs@gmail.com. Well, I guess I should goodbye. It was my pleasure to have you. Thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed. Click the subscriber button, and good luck in your studies. All the best. Feel free to get in touch with me so that I can give you customized support for your dissertation. Have a good day.